Good evening. Welcome you all here tonight. I'll call the February 3rd, 2025 York County Council meeting to order. I will first recognize the Honorable Tommy Adkins from District 3 for invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for letting us all be here tonight. Lord, give us wisdom and guidance as we go about the people's business. Lord, thank you for all these young people in this room. And please help us each day as we go our way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know what we owe this big crowd for, but I'm sure I'll find out pretty soon. But we do welcome you here tonight. Our first item on the agenda is oath of office for newly appointed board and commission members. If Georgette Furr is here, if you would make your way to the front of the room, in front of the podium. Is Georgette here? Is she out in the hallway? She's not here. All right. We do not have any appearances tonight, so we'll move straight into our public forum session. The public forum session is an opportunity for individuals in the community to come out and speak to council. Sometimes folks get frustrated because they ask a question and we don't answer questions here. This is an opportunity for anyone who signed up in advance of the meeting. The first 15 folks who have signed up and wish to speak, it's an opportunity for them to address the council. Couple of rules that go with that. It needs to be on an item that is something within the council jurisdiction. We ask that your comments be kept nice. Don't call out anyone individually or just be polite, please. Also, we have several folks and we still have an agenda to get through. So what if you would, anyone who speaks, if you will pay attention to the screen. And when the 2 minutes comes up, you'll get a warning sign, and then you'll get a red blinking sign, and that means your time is up. And if you'll recognize that so that I don't have to call you down, that makes my life easier. There are some folks that signed up for STILFAB. I do want to make the point to say that matter is in litigation at this point, and so that matter is before the courts. When you come up, when I call your name, if you'll please give your name and address before you start speaking. Thank you. John Lee.
Hi, John Lee, 1398 Secret Path Drive. Good evening. I spoke in front of this council in July, expressing my concerns over several flaws in the county management statement on SILFAB. Since then, construction permits have been issued, and county management has not clarified how a vested right can legally be provided to a third-party non-property owner by a zoning technician with no planning commission involvement. I know several people who have been harmed financially as a result, as they felt compelled to sell their home and move to a different zone school. I know parents that lose sleep worrying about their inability to protect their children in the event of an industrial accident. This is all needless suffering. Of course, the BZA decision applies. Of course, a council action is necessary prior to zoning compliance. Due process is a requirement. I urge this council to demand independent legal representation for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Remove even the appearance of a conflict of interest. This board and their 5-0 decision should be respected, protected, and adhered to. It is the equivalent of a unanimous jury verdict. The BZA should be allowed to publicly clarify their decision applied to the SILFAB development. This would not prejudice SILFAB. It would simply be the truth, and it would restore public trust in York County government. Let corporations take calculated risks on construction costs. Residents should not be forced into a game of chicken, with the ante being the health and safety of our families. Please protect and defend the will of the people that you represent.
Thank you, sir. Norbert, I apologize in advance.
That's okay.
Okay.
My name is Norbert Dickreiter, 965 Bridle Path, Fort Mill, South Carolina. Good evening, council members. I'm speaking today not just as a concerned citizen, but as a parent who refuses to stay silent while our community's safety is put at risk. Despite the Board of Zoning's appeals unanimous decision on May 9, 2024, that solar cell manufacturing is prohibited in a light industrial district, Silfab is still being positioned to operate at 7149 Logistics Lane, right next to the new Flint Hill Elementary and Middle School. This is not just a zoning violation, it is a direct and imminent threat to our community's health and safety. Silfab is not a clean, harmless operation. Their own chemical arsenal proves it. 13,000 gallons of pure oxygen, 22,000 pounds of ammonia, 16,000 gallons of hydrofluoric acid, just to name a few. Do you know who else uses these chemicals? Oil refineries, steel mills. I wonder, would you also place one of those in a light industrial district next to schools and residential neighborhoods? I doubt it. These chemicals aren't just dangerous individually. They create a ticking time bomb when stored together. One leak, one accident, one mishap could trigger a catastrophic explosion or a toxic gas release in our community. And this facility is right next to schools that will be full of children. Yet, instead of enforcing the zoning laws meant to protect us, this council is standing by, allowing this project to move forward. I wonder, who does this benefit? Certainly not the families and children being placed in harm's way. I urge you to act now, before it's too late. Enforce the zoning laws, protect public safety, and stop this reckless project before disaster strikes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Emma Lawrence.
Emma Lowrance, 2494 Greenwood Road. Good evening. I am a senior at Rock Hill High School, and I serve as treasurer of the Rock Hill ATC FFA chapter. I'd like to ask all of my fellow Rock Hill School District students to stand with me tonight. My family and I own and operate Baker Farm in Rock Hill, a fiber farm with a variety of fiber quality sheep breeds. Agriculture has always been a big part of my life, and when I learned that the Applied Technology Center offered both ag classes and an FFA chapter, I was elated. Getting involved with the FFA and taking agriculture classes has opened many doors for me. Through my ag business class, I built an agriculture business with my fellow officer, Tate Weisinger, and won a $5,000 grant this past summer. I show fiber sheep, pigs, and meat goats. When I show fiber sheep, I usually go up to North Carolina to show because of the lack of fiber shows here in South Carolina. When I showed my goat this past fall, we traveled all across the state, usually driving a 5-hour round trip multiple weekends in a row. Having an agriculture arena and facility in York County would allow more students to participate in livestock events that were not able to before because of time traveled. Showing livestock has taught me perseverance, sportsmanship, and responsibility. Giving students a space to show and have hands-on learning experiences will help foster these same traits. Agribusiness is South Carolina's #1 industry with a nearly $52 billion impact on our state's economy. Over 2,500,000 South Carolinian jobs are considered ag industry jobs. My roots in ag, coupled with showing livestock and gaining leadership skills in the FFA, have led me to pursue an education at the Clemson University in animal veterinary science beginning in the fall. It is my understanding that the Western York County Agriculture Arena Steering Committee has been asked to make a formal request in May for your support of this facility. I strongly encourage you to consider how agriculture has brought this community of people together from all over the county. In the past 2 years, we have seen more camaraderie between FFA chapters, 4-H clubs, and the general community. An agriculture home base will further support our network of young agricultural enthusiasts. Thank you again for your support of the industry that clothes, feeds, and fuels us.
Thank you, ma'am. Right on time. A lot to say. Lydia, if we can hold applause, Lydia Boyd.
Lydia Boyd, 209 Springdale Drive. Hello, my name is Lydia Boyd. I'm an FFA officer at York Middle School. I'd like to ask all of my fellow York School District students to stand with me this evening. It is an honor to be here before you all to speak today. I am here to tell you about my passion and respect for agriculture. From a very young age, I've had mentors teaching me the techniques of agriculture and specifically horticulture. Those mentors have continued to teach and build my knowledge for agriculture over the years and even today. In the fall semester of 2023, my agriculture teacher, Coach Hall, deepened my interest and love for ag. I would like to take a moment to thank him for his patience and devotion to our education. When Coach Hall asked me to give this speech, I was both excited and nervous. It is exciting to be part of the process to enrich our agriculture department through the planning, building, and facilitating of events that a new agriculture facility would be able to offer. I strongly believe that this will positively impact our community as a middle school student. I am excited to attend events in the new ag arena that will deepen my understanding and love for ag. My career goal is to one day become a livestock veterinarian. Having an agriculture arena will allow myself and others to set ourselves apart for college applications and will better prepare us for the majors related to this subject matter. I thank you for the opportunity to be here to address you today and hope that my message encourages you to support this project and quality it will add to our education. I hope you have a blessed evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Eli Hudson.
Eli Hudson, 9682 Steeplechase Road. Hello, my name is Eli Hudson. I am 15 years old and I have been involved in the Thundering Herd 4-H group going on 2 years now. I attend a charter school in York County and would love for all charter school and homeschool students to stand up with me tonight. I'm very excited about the proposed York County Agricultural Arena. I think this arena would be an amazing complement to our county's 4-H. 4-H has given me many opportunities and experiences over these past 2 years. I've learned a great deal from dedicated and enthusiastic 4-H leaders, and I'm looking forward to my continued involvement in 4-H. I have gained horse knowledge by studying for 2 horsebow competitions, fun shows, and serious shows alike. I think a designated arena for our county's 4-H would be such an amazing addition and would give so many more kids learning and equestrian opportunities. I would love to see us have a facility to bring in clinicians and experts to share their knowledge with our youth as we prepare to become part of the working agriculture community and one day feed America. 4-H gives me a sense of community and purpose, and in conclusion, a 4-H arena would only give more kids these experiences and opportunities. Thank you for your time and for your continued support of youth in agriculture. Our impact is greater when we all team together.
Thank you, sir. AJ Dover.
Hello, AJ Dover, 104 Flat Rock Street. My name is Alan Dover, and I am honored to serve as the president of the York County 4-H Teen Council and as a student in the Clover School District. Before I begin, I'd like to ask all students here from Clover to stand with me, please. Agriculture is a big part of my life, not only because of my family's 2 farms, but also because of my future career plans in college. Though I live in downtown Clover, I'm fortunate to have my papa and nana who let me keep my animals at their farm. I've been part of the 4-H Horse Project for 10 years as a member of Thundering Herd 4-H Horse Club. Under the leadership of Mr. Mark and Ms. Carla McCarter, I've learned that success isn't about how fast you learn. It's about the quality of what you learn and the dedication you put into it. There's always more to learn, and Mr. Mark is someone I aspire to be like one day. For the past 6 years, I've also been involved in the 4-H Swine Project. Thanks to Ms. Keisha Robinson, raising pigs has shown me that I enjoy teaching, handling, and researching livestock even more than showing them. Ms. Robinson made sure our experience with livestock was about more than just showmanship. I've learned how to properly care for animals, understand how our food gets from the pen to the table, and accept that some things don't always go as planned. This fall, I enter my senior year, knowing that I may never have the chance to show in the new arena. But when I lead a 3-year-old into the swine talk class, or give a clover butt a ride on my horse, I know that I'm part of something bigger. That's why I stand before you tonight. to ask for your continued support of our agriculture program and this arena. Not just for me, but for the next generation. The little ones who will grow up in these programs and the dedicated leaders like the McCarters and the Robinsons who continue to give back long after their own children have aged out. And for Ms. Kristen Kunde, who has big dreams for our county and for the future of 4-H. Thank you for your time tonight. I hope that you would choose to continue supporting our dreams and the aspirations of youth in our county and help to provide them with the proper facilities to make them beyond ready for their futures.
Thank you, sir. Riley Webster.
Riley Webster, 822 Solandra Way. Good evening. My name is Riley Webster, and I am a member of the Fort Mill FFA chapter and 4-H. I'd like to ask the other Fort Mill youth who have joined me this evening to stand with me. As a freshman, I'm already taking advantage of the opportunities that ag education has offered me. I'm my chapter's creed speaker and will participate in horse judging this spring. As stated in the FFA creed, in less need for charity and more of it when needed. I believe that we need to take that line into heavy consideration. If you want to create more opportunities for students in agriculture like me, then we do need that charity. Having this agricultural arena will open up even more opportunities for FFA and 4-H students to engage in leadership and career development events. Participating in these events is tremendously beneficial to a person's character development. Growing up in agriculture and riding horses for 9 years has made me who I am today. It has taught me discipline, responsibility, and independence, qualities that have greatly improved my character. I'm passionate about seeing 4-H and FFA grow in my community. I'm excited for the opportunities that I will have access to when the new arena is open. I've been told that the steering community for the new agriculture arena is making a formal request for support in May at your budget workshop. I urge you to consider the lack of resources that we have to host community agriculture events. Without investing in the next generation of farmers, we will not be able to provide resources for our community in the future. Lastly, I would like to thank you for what you do and for your support of the 4-H and FFA. Please help to make agriculture education accessible to students like me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Scott Kokenauer.
Hey, Council. Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street in the beautiful downtown neighborhood of Whiteville Park in Fort Mill, South Carolina. So thanks for everything you do for us. Thank you, all FFA members. Fortunately, I was involved in that in Indian Land, and both my parents have recently passed, and I found an old box of Farm Credit and Landmark Bank marketing material. I used to clean those two offices for about 10 years. So, hey, I was here for consent agenda item number 1 for the Parks and Rec part of that. In there, can we add a phrase to maybe financially support the municipalities, parks and recs, increase their budget instead of just putting all this money towards future land purchases? So, fortunately, Brown Simpson asked me to be on the advisory committee for that, and one other person from Fort Mill, one more from TK, are part of York County. I think we're under consensus that you're not going to be able to buy land over there, and we just would want to support with that extra mill all of York County, but to support us in our part of the county to increase the budgets allowed every year for our Parks and Rec department. So appreciate that. And then also, the gentleman from Clemson, during that meeting, he said raise our taxes for Parks and Recs, do it in a millage increase, or do it in a line item below. I'm not 100% positive that we need to increase our millage or our financial part of it for that, but if you're going to do it, definitely do it in the millage. Don't do it as a line item underneath. That's going to be a continuing budget procedure. That's one of my pet peeves, that number should not be in a below number. It should be like Tom did it, in the millage part of it. So, hey, thank y'all again. Thank y'all for serving.
Thank you, sir. Well, that concludes our public forum session.
We're all headed to go do an ag event together. We're studying for our CDEs.
So we're going to head and go get pizza and go practice together, but thank y'all.
All right, we'll let the masses exit.
Folks, if you're on that side, you can use that door over there as well. Too late. Too late. Bye, kids.
Thank you all. This is not a parade. What are they over there doing? Waving like this? That was a great crowd.
What you talking about, bro?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that y'all got it, and I think that we have some additional funds that are coming that way too to the group. All right.
Great job, y'all.
Looks like we got some clearing out. Do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved unanimously. We move now to our first public hearing. It's found on page 6 of the council agenda packet. First item, rezoning action, hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-63, tax map number 373000027 and 167 to rezone from UD and RMX 20 to RUD, 2 parcels that total 6.73 acres in District 2. Mr. Buono.
Yes, good evening, council members. So this application does include 2 parcels. From this map, it might look like 3, but the northern parcel is split by the roadway there, so it's 2 parcels. And so both of them are proposed to go to RUD. So the applicant here is proposing to recombine property lines in the future, unsure about where the exact lines are going to be, and the proposal is to construct 1 additional dwelling on the property. If you can see this area, oh, there it works. So this area here, that's a barn, not an existing home, so presumably there would be a new dwelling in about this area. Here's the zoning map for the area. You can see it's urban development for a portion and RMX 20 for another. And it's in a vicinity that has a lot of UD mixed throughout, and just outside of that, there's Ag, AGC to the south, there's RUD to the north, a little bit of a mix in the area. Future land use map is rural residential, and then it has a rural center node overlaid on top of that, so make sure we look at both of those things when we analyze the comp plan. Staff recommends approval. It is consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. The RUD district is consistent with the rural res designation, and it does not preclude future redevelopment if there's going to be a non-residential use here with that rural center designation. There's no proposed change in use with the existing property here. It's consistent with the scale and character that's already present in the area, and it eliminates split zoning and another UD parcel. And by 7-0 vote, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions for staff before we open public hearing? Mr. Ide.
So there's an existing home. Can you go back a couple slides? With the one that shows the residence. So is that a house at the front of the property?
Yeah, there should be a house here.
And then there's a house.
I believe it's in the shadow area.
And there's a home at the rear of the property.
No, this is another barn. There's no home in
Oh,
the...
no, another barn.
Yeah.
Are they going to put another home on this property?
Yes, sir.
Will we be saving time and headache if they drew this up to give a right-of-way to get to the second property? Because what we're seeing now is people coming back because they have 2 homes on a property to now subdivide it to give it its own property lines. So would this property have its own, would this additional house have its own distinct property line?
Yeah, so this is the first step for them. They need to rezone before they can subdivide. So they would subdivide after rezoning is approved.
And when they subdivide and it gets its own property line, is there a way we can recommend that it's given some kind of driveway right away?
Yes, sir, they would, if it doesn't have road frontage, which that rear parcel currently does not anyway, they would have to have an access easement provided.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff before we open public hearing?
Okay, yeah, so the only question I have is across the road there, you have another, there's a section of land that's marked out there. Is that just basically, is that going with that second parcel as a total?
No, it can't be.
So
Yeah.
this portion here and this portion here is actually one
One,
lot.
it's one to,
Yes.
right? And
So,
is-
yeah, they would, they'd have to get creative to make that portion usable. I imagine that whatever the proposed subdivision might just separate that out as its own lot.
Gotcha. And is there going to be a road access to both, kind of piggybacking on your question, are they going to be able to access both properties off that main, basically directly off the road? Is that kind of,
Yeah, they would have to, in the subdivision to come, they would have to make sure that there's an access easement.
to both sides, I would assume?
Yeah, so the front property would give access to the rear property via an easement.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
You point out that's an easement? Is that you point out that's the easement here? Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? If you'll come forward and give your name and address.
My name is Max Spurrier, and I live at 111 Ridge Road, which is right on the corner of Doolin Road and Ridge Road. And I've been in that family for 62 years, and that's been a pasture, I know, for 62 years, and probably a whole lot longer than that. And I just would like to see it stay as agriculture.
Thank you, sir.
And another one of the adjoining property owners owns that. It's a dirt road that goes out to his house. He says he wouldn't give him an easement to hook onto his road.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Although I'm not sure that was in favor. Anyone else wish to speak?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Move now to item number 2, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 24-64, tax map number 546-000027 and 209, to rezone from RMX 20 to RUD, 12-acre parcel in District 6. Mr. Bueno.
Yes, so this application is also across two parcels. The total is 12 acres off Mount Gallant. And you can see that there's not direct access to Mount Gallant, so we have an easement situation here as well. So the request is to go to RUD. The applicants are proposing to allow for agricultural uses across both of those parcels. You can see that the city of Rock Hill limits are right adjacent to the property here, and we're into larger lot county properties further to the west. So here's the zoning for the area. You can see the existing zoning matches the RMX 20. There's an existing residential neighborhood there resting against the city limits. And then it transitions to the west side of these properties into RUD and then further into AGC. The future land use map is recommending single-family residential for this entire area in between Rock Hill and that agricultural area, or conservation area, I should say. So staff recommends approval, and while it's not entirely consistent with the comp plan, because the single-family residential designation is looking for the RSF districts, and certainly RMX is closer to that than RUD is. However, a large RUD district is directly adjacent to this parcel, as we discussed on the previous slide, and property is accessed by a private easement to these parcels, and so it's not really suitable to developing as a residential neighborhood. RUD is consistent with the character of the surrounding land uses and is an appropriate transition district in between the city limits and going west further into the county. And by a 7-0 vote, the Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions? No questions. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close. Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving now to item number 3, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-65, tax map number 36300000144, to rezone from UD to RSF 30, a 1.54 acre parcel in District 2.
Yeah, so this application is surrounded by Clover jurisdiction. You can see the municipal areas in this hatched shading here. And it's on just about an acre and a half, and they're proposing on this lot to split it into 2 lots so they can build 1 new dwelling unit. So you can see the existing home there. They'd like to subdivide that, create 1 additional lot, 1 additional dwelling unit. So the zoning for the area, because it's wrapped around by Clover jurisdiction, a lot of that area in between, like this one, is zoned UD, but there are some residential designations there as well, including RSF 30 and RUD. Future land use map calls for single-family residential for this portion. Staff recommends approval. That's because the comp plan designation for single-family residential certainly matches the RSF 30 district, and the subject parcel is surrounded by parcels that are similar size, character as residential uses, and it removes another property from the D district. Planning Commission also recommends approval 7-0.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Roddy?
Can you go back a couple slides that shows the property with the existing? Once they split this into 2 lots, it's going to be obviously, it's already an odd-shaped lot. I think we're getting into, I don't know, it just, you want people to be able to do what they want to do with their property, but when you place another home on this property here, my question is, how are they going to be able to access it? That's the challenge of this making sense. They're going to have to come with some kind of easement to be able to get back to it. Am I correct?
It depends on the total amount of road frontage. That'll be for their design professional to determine where those lot lines could be. They could try to design something that maybe splits it up. Maybe there's a smaller home. They design a code-compliant flag lot, or they just have a split down the middle, east-west, and they try to do it by an access easement. That's also a possibility.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jonathan. I saw a hand raising in the audience. The way that we handle this is I'll allow the public to come up, and you can ask a question. We don't typically answer it, but we can follow up and ask staff to do it. But is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Okay. If you'll please come forward and give your name and address.
I'm Polly Milton Hall, and 610 East Main Street, Cherryville, North Carolina. This is my property that I inherited from my father. I have a family member who lives in a small house there. What I would like to do is retire there and bring in a larger, nice mobile home, new. And I don't necessarily need to split it up because I don't intend to split it up to sell. I intend to keep it all in one parcel. And there's a 200-foot road frontage, so I understand that it's 100-foot, per lot. But there is access right off the road there. There's a road that my father used to go in and go around the back of the property. And it's just a small piece of property, and I just want to go there and retire. I mean, that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. We move now to item number 4, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading, case number 24-66, tax map number 716000066 to rezone from LI to ID, 16.77 acre parcel in District 1. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this request is adjacent to I-77, would be accessed by Wilson Business Parkway, has an existing cul-de-sac at the end of it. And the request is to go from LI, should be the other way around, it should be LI to ID, not UD, my typo there. So they're proposing to go to the ID district because the proposed business to locate here is machinery manufacturing. They'd like to build a new manufacturing facility. This is an existing business in Charlotte. They'd like to come to York County and build a new facility to expand their operations. So here's a proposed site plan, the early stages, what that could look like. So you can see there's that cul-de-sac of the existing road there, Wilson Business Parkway. So here's the zoning in the vicinity. This lot, along with many of the others on Wilson Business, is light industrial. There is some general commercial there for car sales lots up against I-77. There's a residential subdivision that's separated by a conservation strip. See this strip here that separates it from Vista Road. There's an older subdivision in there. For the future land use designation, this area is I-77 corridor employment, so it's really looking for those industrial manufacturing users. So certainly this proposal fits that character. So the ID district is consistent with the designation, so staff is recommending approval. It's consistent with existing industrial users that are on that same Wilson Business Parkway. And the applicant has also offered to deed restrict their property to limit potential use of the lot. By a 7-0 vote, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions?
Not as much as a question, but I just want to this is a general comment. I had an opportunity to meet with them and what they're doing. First of all, I applaud what they're doing and wanting to bring that in there. The opportunity for some good paying jobs, the opportunity to come to our area, South Carolina, and bring what they want to bring is a great opportunity. Now, this is a tool and die really manufacturer. There's no hydraulics at this location that are going to be filtered into the tool and die, so it's a very non-chemical type of environment. It's a very good opportunity. I'm excited and I welcome them to the area. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions for staff?
Based on what Mr. Audette said, if that's the case, and we're adding deed restrictions to this property, and we're adding deed restrictions quite often now, is that a sign that our zoning might need to be kind of reevaluated? And maybe that this machinery should or could fall under light industrial? Because it seems like it would fit under that way better.
Yeah, not every machinery manufacturing operation is going to be the same. Some are going to be more intense than others. So each manufacturing type could run a different scale, and each product type could run a different scale. So zoning is inartful when it comes to differentiating the different types of business operations and the impact. It tries its best to capture what's most appropriate for a district, but certainly there's always an opportunity to update your code to reflect are the right uses in the right district, especially when the technology is evolving, particularly around scientific operations like manufacturing.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? If you'll come forward and give your name and address.
Hi, John Lee again, 1398 Secret Path Drive, Fort Mill. I'm not against this company, but I am questioning exactly how this is happening, I think as Mr. Leiden just did. So I live about a mile away from the plant facility, and assuming that manufacturing steering components, to Mr. Odette's point, no significant pollution concerns, potential for disastrous off-site consequences, it feels as if we should not be spot rezoning to ID with a limited use of restrictions. York County Planning and Zoning, I don't know if they would have, in the BZA, I don't know if they would have the same authority and enforcement control over these, a deed restriction that they would a standard zoning violation. Residents rely on enforcing zoning laws to protect not just our property values, but public safety. And manufacturing cases do present public safety issues. Distance is the only protection from these types of hazards, and zoning laws are the primary mechanism to provide that safety. And it just feels like there's a major blind spot here. And so rather than spot rezoning to LI, from LI to ID and having this finite list of restrictions, can't we give them a special exception or a conditional use permit or something, but keep the property LI so that somewhere down the line after this company moves on, this isn't an ID property because there's another school that's directly behind the thing. So I really think that this council needs to think several steps ahead to ensure the community safety as it relates to zoning and manufacturing uses. And we cannot rely on just hopes and prayers to keep us safe, to be smart. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, and Mr. Roddy missed my speech. Can I hand it?
You can hand it to the clerk. She'll pass it down. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against? If you'll come forward, please.
My name is Heidi Ketchbaudo. I am a resident, and I live in the Eppington South.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm having trouble.
I live in the Eppington South Development off Gold Hill Road in York County. In my opinion and from my understanding, it just doesn't make sense to continue to encourage or allow the heavy industrial manufacturing in what is a residential zone, a light industrial zone. I'm sorry, I just jotted down some notes as I heard people speaking. Bear with me, I'm not a speaker. We have established residential communities in this area. We have schools, we have senior residential centers, we have daycares, we have senior daycare, and I actually was quite taken aback by certain members indicating that they welcome this into the community when on October 7th, I believe, there was a simple water main break on Route 21 where the assistant manager in the town indicated that it was an accident, that the construction worker hit the pipe. Do you know for over 5 days the town could not handle that situation. They couldn't disseminate information on who can use water, who should boil water, who should be open, who should be closed. They closed school over a simple water pipe break that was an accident in construction. And now you want to bring in more construction, more manufacturing. Where are the people in the town saying we need more jobs? I don't see that. And think about the children, think about the residents, think about what the residents want. That's what I thought you were here for. In my opinion, you're here for the residents, not for companies. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name's John Floyd. I'm an attorney with Moore & Van Allen in Charlotte. I'm here tonight on behalf of the petitioner, Onya Bini, North America. There we go. I'd like to start by just giving you a little bit of background about the company and what the plan is to do here. We appreciate Councilmember Audette for meeting us out there and taking a look at the property. The petitioner here is the U.S. subsidiary of Onya Bini Power. They're the global market leader in off-highway power steering systems. These are steering systems that are used in things like farming equipment, tractors, boats, and even high-end vehicles like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I think the biggest customers out of this particular location are John Deere, Bobcat, and Caterpillar, so that just gives you an idea of kind of what the uses are here. Their current U.S. headquarters and a hydraulic piston assembly facility is located off Westinghouse Boulevard, just across the border in Charlotte, and due to just outgrowing their current location, they need more space. So they're looking to relocate here to York County to address the needs for those space demands. Their plan is to construct a 145,000 square foot industrial building, approximate cost of $8 million. That expanded facility means more jobs. Currently, they plan to move 20 employees here with the hope to grow it to 60 employees over 3 separate shifts. I heard in the opening the gentleman talking about kind of the concerns about chemicals and things like that. As Councilmember Audette mentioned, there are no chemicals installed on site here. This is an assembly facility, so the parts get shipped in, they get assembled, but the hydraulic fluid and things that go in a hydraulic piston, that is installed at the Bobcat facility, at the John Deere facility. It doesn't happen here. It is literally people putting these things together and then shipping them out. And I think that's a very important point. I mean, we certainly understand the concerns with environmental contamination, and that is not something that is likely to happen here. This is just a photograph of what the component parts look like. These are pieces of the hydraulic pistons. Just to give you an idea of size, these generally range from anywhere from 1 feet to 4 feet long, maximum diameter of 10 inches. So we're not talking about giant pistons here. We're talking, again, about things that go in automobiles, tractors, that sort of thing. You saw the site plan. The one thing I'd point out here is just there is a pretty significant transmission line that runs through the property. So that does create some design issues, but they've managed to fit the building on the site. Here's just a potential rendering of the industrial building. Again, the site's located at 16.77 acres, located on the east of Wilson Business Parkway at the very end, west of I-77. This is just an overhead showing kind of what's in the neighborhood. I mean, you already have kind of a commercial area here. You've got multiple industrial buildings already constructed there, 3 to be exact. And we're looking to, again, develop this parcel here. Just an aerial view. Again, you see the parcel that's proposed to be developed there with the blue dot, and you've got kind of 3 larger industrial buildings in the area. And again, an overhead, and I just point out there again, you see the transmission line running through the property. Current zoning is light industrial. You've got general commercial and light industrial in the immediate vicinity. Comprehensive plan identifies this for I-77 corridor, and again, one of the uses there is light manufacturing is what the comprehensive plan has for that future land use. I did put together a table comparing what is permitted under light industrial to industrial. Obviously, a lot of the things are similar. There are very few, and I will admit I missed one. Chemical manufacturing is one that I do not have on my list here, but this is as best as I could do it, a list of the uses that are entitled as in the industrial district that are not entitled in the light industrial district. And the ones in red are the ones that the petitioner has agreed through a deed restriction to prohibit their use. So really the goal here was we took out all the ones that we thought were most intense to limit it down to the things that we most needed to be able to do what I would say is, in a lot of jurisdictions, a light industrial type use. Here, under your ordinance, at one point they sought an interpretation. It was determined that we needed something that would allow that machinery manufacturing, and this is the way that we went about obtaining the zoning to allow that redevelopment. But you can see, all the other types of manufacturing, petroleum products, all that kind of stuff is prohibited. That is a restriction that will run with the land. It is binding on any future owner. It is for the benefit of the county. So the county is able to enforce it. And so we think that does what is necessary to give you all certainty that this property is going to be done as, used the way that we're saying. So in conclusion, I'll just say, look, we think that this is an appropriate use for this site. It is a light industrial area, and although this is technically manufacturing, we think it's more of a light industrial type manufacturing. It's not a use that is going to drive up traffic. It's not a use that is going to result in increased water and sewer capacity issues. It is a sizable investment that is going to increase tax base. It's going to create some jobs. And we think it's a good project, and we would ask that you strongly consider supporting it tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yes.
Does that,
With
just for
conditions?
clarification, does the motion have to include the deed restrictions, or
Well-
is that contained inside of the request, since it was part of the approval from the planning commission?
It's part of the request, but I think a reference to
You can
it
spell
helps
it
in the
out.
motion, just to be clear.
So, before I do the motion on here, though,
Do the motion.
I guess there's a discussion, I think this has been a great discussion. I think that looking at this thing,
Tom, we need the motion.
Okay.
You make the motion.
motion to approve with the modification of exemptions here as special exemptions as opposed to the way it's written. So keeping it as light industrial, making these modifications as special exemptions.
Second.
Well, for purposes of clarification, it actually goes to industrial, but it will be limited by the deed restrictions.
Yes. I second.
Right, so the motion would be to keep this as light industrial with special exemptions as the deed
No,
restrictions.
Actually, the way, apparently staff made a determination that the use was required to be an industrial. In order to meet that, the request is to continue to zone it industrial, but there will be deed restrictions that run with the land that were part of the packet that basically eliminate all of these uses with the exception of machinery and miscellaneous manufacturing.
Yeah, and again, again, I understand what they had come up with for a requirement. I just think at this point, and again, I know we're only at first reading, so we can probably move forward and get this thing moved on this motion.
So just so we clarify, is the motion to approve the reading with the deed restrictions?
Yes, motion is to approve the reading with deed restrictions.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion, further discussion?
Yeah, so going into second reading, though, I would like you to take this back from a staffing perspective, because I feel that this should have been left as light industrial with exceptions, special exceptions to what was required here. I think that I'm concerned about how this was written, because it is, again, modifying this to industrial when this really is light industrial, and it should be applied as special exceptions.
Doug, we'd have to revisit that and report back, special exceptions being a term of art in the zoning code. But the motion's on the table, we can evaluate your concerns.
Right, if you can evaluate my concerns for the second reading, yes.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, so we're going from light industrial to industrial development with deed restrictions. That's what we're
Correct.
voting
The
on?
deed restrictions eliminate a good bit of them, yes. That's correct. That's what we were advised by folks listening. The folks who make the determination as to whether or not something falls within a legal category is specifically prescribed in the code, and that responsibility goes to staff. Then it goes to the Planning Commission, and now we have 3 readings. This is what was recommended, and the deed restrictions were volunteered at the outset because of obviously the community likely would have some concerns about some of the other uses. I would like confirmation from our legal counsel, the representation that was made that this runs with the land and that this would be binding on any future owners of the property. If I can either get that now.
Yes,
or-
ma'am. Oh, I would have to evaluate that, but
Yeah,
that would be the intent.
That's important for at least for my vote. Any other comments?
Well, I don't want to get too deep into it. I know several people were talking about spot zoning, and there's no such thing as a perfect zoning code. Because what we always do, if someone wants to come up and say, hey, I like to put this type of business here, where does it fall? Then you look at the zoning code and you say, hey, so you're doing, whether it's light manufacturing, heavy industrial, and planning says, hey, you fit in this category. You may not fit everything that goes on in that category, or we may not like everything that goes on in that category. So then we say, well, we wouldn't want a gas station that's permitted to be this close to a residential neighborhood. We wouldn't want XYZ close to this. So we start tailoring and knocking out things that we wouldn't want to allow close to existing businesses or buildings or neighborhoods. So we have to try to tailor it, because there are going to be existing properties around it. Because you got to think and imagine, zoning didn't come into play in York County until what, 80, 84?
87.
So there are going to be existing buildings and things that's already there that we try to somewhat protect, whether it's a neighborhood or certain businesses. We don't want certain things close to whatever. So we're not spot zoning. We're trying to make sure the pursued business is going in, and we're going to protect the area to not allow some of the stuff that's maybe in the red. We're going to kick those out to say that the next future property owner can't bring these things. And I think that provides a level of protection to that area, to those existing businesses, to those neighborhoods that may be close by. So we're not spot zoning. We're trying to, there's nothing perfect in this world. Nothing perfect. We're not perfect. Codes are not perfect. But what we're trying to do is tailor it to fit to where we're protecting the area and allowing a business to come in, generate jobs, grow our tax base. And I will challenge anybody that says we don't need jobs. I'll challenge you every single day. We need jobs. We need good paying jobs. We also want to have good jobs. We don't want things that's going to threaten our environment. We don't want things that's going to threaten people's neighborhoods and that nature. So with that being said, you know, somebody, if we're going to cut a road somewhere, you best believe somebody's going to come say, we don't need that road. So we're always going to see people in opposition to what we're looking to do, but best believe this council is going to vet tooth and nails what we do carefully to make sure we allow opportunities and as well as protect what's around it as well. So just wanted to kind of share that, but I'm definitely supporting it with the deed restrictions and conditions, as we would call it.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I would like to just lodge my protest against deed restrictions in general. It's my way that I'm viewing this. We're essentially rewriting the zoning code every time we rezone one of these things. And if it continues on, and let's say that the next time this one gets rezoned and these stick with it, at some point in the future, the land is going to be completely worthless and will only be usable for that one company that's there. And, rewriting the ordinance for every rezoning is, I just feel like that's the wrong way to run government.
Any other discussion? I have to share the thought that one of the things that the council has identified as in its strategic plan is to simplify the code. And I think that taking a look at the uses under the use table would be appropriate once we finish the ag exercise, which is taking a good bit of time. This does seem like one of those areas where you're gutting out a lot and leaving what's left. And so I think there's some room there for us to take a look at that. Meanwhile, we have to deal with what we have in front of us. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Move now to item number 5, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 24-67, tax map number 72100000015, to rezone from UD to GC, 4.86 acres in District 7. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this application is to go out of a UD property into a GC property on Highway 21. It's just under 5 acres. It is an existing shopping center, so there's no new development proposed here. The applicant simply wishes to have a greater suite of retail options available to them in GC as opposed to UD. Here's the zoning in the area. You see there is a lot of UD property still, and large ones at that, on Highway 21. But over the last couple of years, a lot of them have shifted towards GC, certainly in this general vicinity specifically. The future land use map is looking at this area as I-77 corridor employment. So staff recommends approval, and while the proposal is not necessarily in keeping with the comp plan to bring targeted employers here, manufacturers and the like, this is an existing shopping center, so there's no redevelopment proposed here. They're just looking for more options for tenants. And this would also remove the parcel from a legacy UD district as well. So staff recommends approval, as does the Planning Commission 7-0.
Any questions for staff? All right, is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Move now to item number 6, rezoning action. Hold a public hearing and consider first reading case number 24-68, tax map number 72600000041, to rezone from UD to RMX 20, 1.26 acres in District 7. Mr. Buono.
Yes, this UD parcel is on Pikeview Road, just over an acre. They are looking to go to the RMX 20 district. The purpose here is to build a dwelling. So the property had a manufactured home on it some time ago that is no longer there. So they're looking to develop it as a residential property. So you can see the character of the area. It's pretty residential in this area. So the zoning, there is PD, certainly that's a neighborhood there. There's a lot of RMX 20, which is the reason the applicant requested it, matches the surrounding area. The future land use calls for this to be neighborhood residential. Certainly any of the RMX districts would match that designation. So for that reason, staff is recommending approval. RMX 20 is the predominant district in the area. Residential is the predominant use. And by a 6-1 vote, Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Do we have a new motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We move now to old business. First item in old business, rezoning action, consider third reading, case number 24-52, tax map number 46400000019, to rezone from AGC to RUD, 3.02 acre parcel in District 2. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll just say, I'm going to vote against this because I'm thinking that when we revisit the code, this may be allowed in the future, and I'm just uncomfortable rezoning it from AGC to RUD.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 6-1. Move now to item number 2, rezoning action. Consider third reading, case number 24-57, tax map number 25700000008, to rezone from AGC to RUD, a 7-acre parcel in District 3. Do we have a motion?
Motion to defer until the 1st of August meeting pending information gathering on AGC classification and uses.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. I got, historically, it has been a family, had to go before in a special exception. But in my terms, in which I want Kingery to elaborate, it makes no sense to keep changing AGC to RUD when family, immediate family especially, are involved, especially with their kids. I got a case here that basically the mother, all she wants to do, and she would rather it stay in AGC. And what they used to allow with just a little bit of tweaking could solve a lot of our AGC problems. And I'd like for us to discuss it and kind of timely initiate. Mark, could you explain a little bit about what we...
Certainly, there's an ongoing program to address the rural districts in the county, but part and parcel of that is what was formerly termed as the family exemption for the division of property amongst family members. That it has been codified in our old code, and it remains in the existing code. However, to address the issue on this matter that's being deferred, there would need to be some modifications to that with some more express provisions. During the pendency of the time period from now till the August meeting, we could certainly report back, if not effectuate some recommended changes sooner in the year so that it can be addressed in August. But that would require some discussion amongst management, planning staff in our office, but happy to do that and comfortable that that can be achieved with some discussion and work on that point.
Well, and I would add too, just from the staff's perspective, that's the whole point of the rural zoning project, right? So what I hear you saying is you want to wait on this till that project's done. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yes, which it wouldn't cover some of the things, but at least the family exemption part that we...
And we don't know where that's going to land. That's up to the county council to determine,
Yeah.
not staff. So there's a lot of work in between then and now, and I would just hope that we all know that there's work to be done before there's any.
Oh, yeah,
that comes
and
up.
I talked to Sandy and made her aware I just would love to get it done as timely as I could, so.
Permission to speak from the chair and the manager, please. Councilman Atkins, I can assure you, we're working on a very aggressive schedule with the rural zoning project. Mobilization, particularly with the planning and development staff, has already begun. We are setting goals and benchmarks and priorities, which I think you'll get some outreach very, very soon in coming days. with a survey instrument for all of the council and the planning commission and the committee. But we are committed to addressing these issues, but I have a strong feeling intuitively that this particular issue, which I know is close to your heart, will be a high priority, if not the highest.
Yeah, and if I could I address the rest of the council? It just seems like to me, y'all, that it could eliminate a lot of the rezonings that we're doing. If you take, for instance, my rezoning, even Bump and Andy's rezoning, if we had had something in place here, they wouldn't even needed to come before us for this. And it doesn't make sense that we're talking about wanting the preservation of ag land, but every time we turn around, we got to change it to RUD. And in actuality, we may think that doesn't hurt anything, but if the person next to this one say they got 30-some acres and they want to change it to RUD, and then they change their mind, and then there's 30 houses, eventually, I'd rather see be 3 acres amongst family and whatnot on ag land, which would give you less density and bigger lots and would suit more in the area of the zoning, and which then again, as Bump was talking on the spot zoning, what spot zoning, what ain't spot zoning, you would be nipping that in the bud also. So, I mean, it just makes common sense.
Any other discussion? Mr. Roddy?
You know, when I hear family exemption, I was like, I'm baffled and confused and about to lose my mind, because it means different things to different people. Because when I hear family exemption, it says, all right, if you want to build another house on this property, you should be able to do it without even coming to us. That sounds good theoretically, but unless you got the money to build that additional home and don't go to the bank is going to tell you this house is going to have to sit on its own lot. So that family's still going to have to come to us to be able to subdivide that property. Therefore, that's a rezoning.
Yes, and that was the process, excuse me for interrupting, but that was a historic process that occurred before the zoning board and through the application of a variance and a hardship to have that lot platted but remain AGC, so no rezoning occurred.
Right.
Then, years ago.
Then.
But now, we have to do a rezoning if you want to have that property be in a standalone fashion.
Well, I think the question,
No.
I think what I'm hearing, the question, and the applicant in this particular case is it has the luxury of waiting a little bit of time to see if we get to a different result that would maybe make it to where she wouldn't have to do that. I think what I'm hearing, the question being just, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but what I hear is, I hear council members wanting to take a look at family exemption, council members also wanting to find a way that the property can stay AGC and still allow something that would be 2 homes on 7 acres, at least having those options presented to the committee and then evaluate how to get around those. But
right.
Well,
what we've done in the past, made it RUD, deed restricted it, and she's able to move forward today, because there's no guarantee waiting until August that we're going to make it allowable in August. But she's already paid her money now to do a rezoning.
Understood.
We want her to be able to build the additional home. She's paid the money. What benefit does she have of waiting to August?
Well,
She
I
has
think
none.
also, and one of the questions was there wasn't a deed restriction prepared. So as when we reached out to, and I think there's some sensitivity to the fact that when you rezone it with the deed restrictions, that somehow those may get lost, or that it's creating somehow making it easier for the neighbors to be able to do that. But just because this was something that was brought up before we started the council meeting tonight, that there is no deed restriction prepared for this property, and so it would have to be deferred until the deed restrictions are paired. You can't on third reading, you're not allowed to, Michael, I mean, Mr. Kinder, you let me know, on third reading, you're not allowed to say it's conditioned upon a deed restriction. The deed restriction has to be in place. So
Yes.
either way, she was going to need to wait for a deferral.
So we can either wait 2 more weeks and get the deed restriction in, or she can roll the dice and wait to August and hope we get it right.
I think she was interested in keeping the property at
Back.
AGC, but at this point, I mean, I think that conversation, the motion on the table is to defer, and I think August was the date that I think you put in your motion, but if there's a change of position, I agree with you. I mean, I
Well-
think that gets the matter resolved today.
And I want to make one more comment. There's nothing to gain by keeping the AGC with 3.5 acres. There's not going to be any gain or any loss because you don't have that large acreage to get whatever on the taxes. You're going to have 2 single houses on 3.5 acres. There's nothing to be gained by trying to say, I want to keep it AGC. Your tax value is going to be the same on the AGC or RUD, period.
But what we don't know is we don't know what the lot size might be once we address the
Well,
rezoning.
it's not
under
going to matter.
AGC.
She only has 7
Y'all,
acres
instead of
to
us
play
going
with.
back, I think you made that point.
You only have 7
Tonight,
acres.
the motion on the table is to defer
Let
it
us
to
defer it.
August. If the applicant wants to move forward and do a deed restricted
But-
parcel, then she needs to submit the deed
Yeah.
restriction. And if she prefers to wait for AGC, I think either way, we can bring that before council. But I
But-
think the comments are noted.
Okay.
Do we,
But that's also not actually also 6 acres. And in the state statute, actually, you can be conditioned for tax, ag, as long as you can show that you sell $1,000 worth of profit on small farms. But actually, what I'm talking about, though, when we do this.
let's not call it, we're not going to call each other out and go back and forth on the comments.
It would actually be just like it was what Kingery was talking about. These people could literally, that was standalone AGC property, and they could borrow money.
All right, I think we all understand the issue. At this point, there is no deed restriction currently in front of us, but there is a deferral, and there's an opportunity to bring that back if that's the option the applicant wants to go. So the motion on the table is to defer it to August. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We on number 3. Rezoning action, consider third reading, case number 24-58, tax map number 52900000061, to rezone from AGC to RUD, a 5.2 acre parcel in District 4. And Mr. Roddy, I didn't find this out until we just literally started the
I know.
council meeting. So apparently you can't move to condition it. You would have to have it in hand, and the applicant would need to be made aware of it in order for that to happen.
So we can defer this for 2 weeks, and we'll get that deed. I'll give them a call to see if we can get a
Okay.
deed restriction put in place.
So is the motion to defer
Motion to defer.
to the next council meeting? A motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh. Get ready. All right.
I'm trying. What would the deed restriction be? Well, I mean,
We're basically going to say that they can't be further subdivided. And I guess that would be considered a deed restriction, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
This
That's all,
was
that's
the-
all, that's the only thing we're going to do is get the applicant to agree that you can't subdivide it anymore. That will cause a domino effect of other neighbors to want to come in and do RUD, and then now all of a sudden you got 1 acre lots, or to change the whole character of the area. Because there are already 2 homes existing on this property.
Well, since that came up, let me say this then. Where this parcel is, 2 parcels away, there are 10 parcels of RUD that don't have deed restrictions. So, I mean, you could make
Well,
the argument that in the rest of the property off of Redwood and around Redwood, there's smaller parcels of land. They've already been, appears
I
they've
think the
been
reason why
subdivided.
this one had a distinguishing, and I mean, it's up to the applicant and it's up to Mr. Roddy to
Sure.
make the motion, but I think the distinguishing factor in this one is that it was a 37 there were 37 parcels that were parceled out 5 acres, and all but 3 of them have single family homes on them. Apparently, way back, there was an opportunity where somebody did the RUD, but on 3 of those lots that are further out, but if the applicant, I think that's the. Do you want to put it on the screen, or?
Who's just showing me the character of the surrounding neighborhoods that has smaller lots. But I think the difficulty will come in is still being in the county, you're gonna have to try to get well and septic in. I don't think it's gonna be doable if somebody did wanna come back and take their 5 acres and put 5 homes on it, because now you gotta get 5 well and septics in that area. I don't think that's really doable.
Under these circumstances, I support the deferral, and if we find out some new information that makes it justify RUD, we'll take that up at the next meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moved down to item number 4, rezoning action. Consider third reading case number 24-62, zoning request to rezone 48 parcels to one. Well, that's not true. To rezone 48 parcels to remove existing split zone status. Does it matter if I change it or if I'm reading it? Because they're not going to one zoning classification. This is in District 3. Mr. Kendry?
Yes, I'm getting there. I believe you can
I just
call
corrected
it
it.
out as listed, noting that there were 2 at public hearing that were altered.
I think there are a few more, but do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and pass it, but which I've talked to Josh and several, and
There were 3, excuse me, sorry to interrupt.
but for the aggravation and sake of time and all the time invested in this, it would have been easier just to went to AGC. But that's all I got to say.
So we did get the memo from management on the parcels and what's non-conforming and what before and what was now. And what it appears is that this rezoning actually results in 14 parcels still being non-conforming, mostly having to do with some of the parcels since AGC, most of the parcels are going to AGC 1. Which one, do we need to note this? Because it doesn't look like the chart's updated. There are some that go to AGC. I just want to make sure that we get this right, because I did notice,
You need my laptop? It has the parcels?
well, is this not what's getting?
So it was captured in your motion to approve first reading, but just for the record and for clarification, parcel 30200000048 would be for AGC. Parcel 339000020 would also be for AGC, and parcel 33900000022 would be for RUD1, and the rest would be for AGC1.
And one thing to bring up, and I know I talked to Councilmember Atkins about this, council could decide that y'all would rather have all AGC here. So what we were trying to do as staff was to work with the residents around what they had originally intended the zoning to accomplish. And so that's why you see AGC 1 and RUD 1. Council could decide you'd rather do all AGC. You could have a few non-conforming lot sizes that are too small for AGC, but you could also do AGC there. That's an option for y'all to consider. We wanted to make sure y'all were aware of that.
So
But we were trying to work with the residents and their original intent of the zoning.
And trying to work through this today and talking with legal, the understanding was that we cannot change we couldn't change 14 of them to AGC, which would make them all conforming, the ones that are the actual mobile home, because of the way it was noticed to the public. That would require a new public hearing in order for that to occur. So
That's right.
that's what presented an issue. The reason why we had to start this was because of a concern of simply being able to take two parcels. Someone wanted to take a couple of acres and give it to another family member, and that's what, I appreciate staff's effort to try and find a solution. I still am a little concerned that we've got these non-conforming uses. To me, maybe the better approach would have been the ones that are still non-conforming, to simply put them in AGC. Then they would all be conforming after this rezoning. But after talking with some of the staff, there's another one in here. There's one that has an owner. I didn't bring my notes because I left them in the car, but there is an owner. Here it is right here. The parcels 302,000,047 and 48, they appear to be owned by at least the same person, and we're going to have one going AGC and one AGC1. Is that what they intended, was to have two different zoning classifications?
Yes, as far as I understand, the request was just for the one parcel being 48 to go to AGC.
Well, those were the questions. I think there are competing interests here about going ahead and moving forward and getting this resolved. And I did speak with the one individual who was here at council, and they were fine with their rezoning classification and understood. I wanted to make sure that they understood that they were in a non-conforming status. So I'm reluctantly going to support this tonight, and I hope that nothing comes out of it that's a problem.
Permission to speak, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I want to try to urge you to assuage your fears about the non-conforming uses, because I think what everybody, all of us need to do is look at the bigger picture. I think fixing the split zoning makes things simpler and fairer for everyone. In my experience, non-conforming uses change or fade over time, but bad zoning stays. So in the long run, I think this is the corrective zoning is going to reduce the confusion, and it'll match how the land is actually being used. And I should insert too that the Planning and Zoning Committee met in December and talked about some text amendments that they'd like to move forward. I think that will arrive as early as March. Is that correct, Jonathan? Which will ease the pain further on non-conforming uses. I mean, right now, small lots can't be combined unless they meet the zoning size rule, but this will allow owners to combine lots more flexibly, even if they don't meet the rule. They won't, right now, it's difficult to expand homes or add things like sheds or decks. The new rules will allow this. So I think when you, pardon me, if you look at this in the collective and what staff is trying to do with not only corrective zoning, but corrective measures in the non-conforming use and lot sizes, it matters because when you combine the actions, it's going to help homeowners improve their properties when they want to improve them. It's going to keep zoning fair while giving people more flexibility. And it's really going to bring our rules more in line with our peer counties as well. So I certainly understand your concerns about nonconformities, but again, in my experience, I think the corrective zoning will trump what the issues are with nonconforming uses. I have great confidence in that.
So, well, I appreciate those comments. I do think that there are currently 14 of these parcels that are being zoned something that doesn't allow them to have a manufactured home when they already do have a manufactured home. So I think that it does clear up the dual zoning, But I think we're still left with 14 parcels that have a use that is currently non-conforming. So if they've tried to go tomorrow to add a deck or to expand it or to replace, a mobile home, then they may face issues there. Now, if there's going to be, there's been some discussion about creating a whole new ordinance that eliminates nonconformities. I've not seen that ordinance yet, but it seems like layer after layer after layer it becomes problematic. But I think I have gotten satisfied from the folks that we've called, 4 of them being one of the other folks, that they at least understood that their parcel was going to be non-conforming. I don't know about the rest of them, but I do think it's, just to clarify that, this does create a situation for those 14 parcel owners.
Well, maybe that's an opportunity to be addressed in the rural zoning project. I think we can look at that soberly as much as we look at all the other issues we have to address.
Or if this was council-initiated rezoning, if something comes up and for any reason one of these parcel owners wasn't informed and didn't understand, we could just be flexible on dealing with their situation if they come back to council.
Yeah, so one quick comment, based on those 14 locations, it was my understanding, at least based on the conversations that we had before, those had been isolated out, and the process will continue to mitigate those 14 afterwards, correct? I mean, to make them conforming, or how are we approaching this? Because
And that's what Assistant Manager Couch was speaking to in terms of the ordinance recommendations that are coming through from the Planning and Zoning Committee. So those are coming in March. I think there's a number of things going on at once, and what we're trying to say as staff is we're trying to do the best we can to address residents' concerns when we received this a number of months ago. And so we understand that things are changing as we move. Potentially, the rural zoning project, just to be hypothetical, will reduce the number of rural zoning districts, and there will no longer be AGC 1. We don't know that. We don't have a crystal ball, but this could be AGC someday instead of AGC 1 after that project. But again, we're not there yet. We're looking through this, and we're trying to address the needs as they come up. There will be other things that are addressing those needs in the short term too, that may or may not be impacted by the overarching project when we bring it to completion.
Okay, so I'm hearing that this non-conforming 14 locations, though, is part of the evolution of what we're going to cover once this is passed, correct? I would assume, and I guess I want to make sure my assumption is right.
In my universe, I would think so, yes.
Okay. I just want to, again, I just don't want to have that ship be missed in the sea here, that we address this.
And I must say, I think it's very important that all of you lean into the outreach that you're going to get from staff about your opinions and thoughts and preferences on the issues, because I think in some respects they may differ, not necessarily dramatically, but we have to figure out how to scribe the code correctly to try to hit it in the middle where everybody's as happy as they can be.
Well, let me just say that I agree with Madam Chair Cox that these probably should have been addressed differently for the 14 nonconformings. If we do a rezoning, we should make sure that we aren't rezoning people into nonconforming uses. And I don't think we should rezone and based on a future hope that we're going to fix something. We should take care of it now and deal with those things later. And I guess as part of this, if these 14 are still an issue, if we don't approve the non-conforming uses text, that we come back in as a council and rezone these and make them conforming, because we shouldn't be creating hardships on people. And I really wish this had been addressed earlier.
Yeah.
But that's it.
I do agree with that, absolutely.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We do not have any new business tonight. Committee and other reports. Health and Environmental Protection Committee, Chairman Andy Litton.
Yes, ma'am. The Health and Environmental Protection Committee met last week, and we discussed the residential or recreation tax, and we also discussed some of the parks properties in the Parks Master Plan or Parks Strategic Plan. We didn't make any actions from those. We're waiting on additional information from staff.
Thank you, sir. We do not have any citizen concerns. Do we have any council member new non-agenda comments before executive session? Hearing none, do we have a motion for executive session?
Yeah, receipt of legal advice, litigation update, receipt of legal advice, contractual matter, EMS rescue services.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll move straight into executive session. of executive session. No action was taken. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
All right, good to see everybody. Thank y'all. Andy, between you and Tom.